Hello, my name is Jeff Aska, and this is my wife Louise. And we're sitting here in our own private little oasis that we had the landscape artist help us design, create, and ultimately build.
We met him about 20 years ago. He was doing a property that belonged to friends of ours, and he just did such outstanding work there that when we later on got to the point where we wanted to engage someone to work on one of our yards, he was the first person that we brought in.
The first yard was actually a complete back deck, flower gardens, rock wall, irrigation system. I think we started with a blank slate and turned it over to Peter. So it was a pretty plain, simple backyard, but Louise is a gardener, as you can see around here. And so he turned that blank canvas into a nice garden oasis for us. So this yard, we had a couple of specific unique challenges that we'd never experienced before, and primarily drainage. This whole community is kind of a clay-based community, and when it rains or if it's in the spring and there's lots of moisture, we found this backyard turns into quite a bit of a boggy, wet mess. So our first challenge for Peter and his team was to figure out how to best mitigate the terrible drainage that we saw here, and if we could actually indeed successfully turn that problem into the garden feature yard that we have here today.
Peter had to deal with a lot of issues in this yard. The previous owners had done some earlier landscaping that Jeff was alluding to, the drainage issues. But over time, the ravine behind us had been allowed to encroach. So for about the bottom third of that yard, including where you see the fireplace there, it was just all wild land again. So Peter had to basically reclaim it for us. And then that was when we realized that to give us the kind of structure that we were looking for, he would create the various retaining walls and deal with the plantings in between. And we shared some visions for the structure, and he came up with that final plan. So we were very, very pleased.
And so for some time now, I know it's been a bit of a passion of mine to incorporate whatever we did for landscaping, a stream of some type. And that was the basic definition I gave the landscape artist was, I just like to have a stream running through whatever we end up with. I like the sound of the water, I like the motion of the water, it's very tranquil. And what we ended up with was beyond my expectations. I think we've got 7 waterfalls here, and it runs the full length of our backyard. So we found ourselves with several different sitting areas where we could sit in the morning with a coffee and enjoy the birds around the bird feeder with the sound of the waterfalls, or later in the evening with perhaps a cocktail down by the fire and still listening to the sound of the water. So it worked out great.
One of the great things about Peter, though, is he has a really great vision. So when he came to the yard the first couple of times to talk to us about what we wanted, like Jeff said, we wanted to incorporate a water feature. I wanted expansive gardens, but we didn't really know how to put that together. And so it was Peter's vision of being able to, walk around and stand in one place and kind of put it all together. And he gets very excited and animated when he's talking about what he sees. And so, it was a really great back and forth kind of partnership in getting the whole concept on paper, but it's just been spectacular for us, and we're pretty proud of it.
The thing I found very and continue to find about Peter's business and the team is just the level of professionalism of the gang. From everybody has a job to do, and they're all extremely talented individuals. And what always strikes me is their work ethic. They're here when they say they're going to be here. They work longer than I expect or would want them to in a given day to get the job done, and they're just meticulous in the level of detail and attention to detail they do in everything they do. So that to me is striking, because previous contractors we've had over the years, there's always a problem or a challenge or a disappointment, and we just don't seem to have that with Peter's team. When we sat down and put a budget together and sat with Peter, he guided us towards things that would fit within our budget. He cautioned us on things that were outside the budget. Inevitably, we would find some common ground. We'd add a few things in some places, take a few things in other places, but we're within 1% of what he told us we would be when we started this project at the very beginning of the planning stages. So I couldn't be happier with what we ended up with. It's just an ongoing, collaborative, informative discussion, and we ended up right on target. I find, for myself, I'm surprised to the extent of which we use this backyard now. I know when we first started talking this through with Peter and developing the plan, we had a vision of a functional backyard and garden for Louise especially. But we found ourselves out here daily when the weather permits, and I didn't expect that. I'm a little surprised as to how much we do use this backyard now, and especially the fireplace. That for us was going to be whenever there was a special occasion or the right moment, but we find ourselves on a whim sometimes just saying, let's go have a fire this evening, and there's nothing quite like the sound of the crackling wood and that fire with this ambient creek and gardens around us. So I'm thrilled.
We've been 100% satisfied with every occasion that we've used a landscape artist. And as I mentioned, when we moved into this home and knew that we were going to develop the backyard, we didn't even need to search for anyone. We just automatically called Peter. And then based on the work that he's performed for us, we've been happily able to provide him as a reference to other friends and neighbors who have in fact used him in their places as well. So only good things to say about Peter and the crew at Landscape Artist.